Morning everybody, it's Darlene McLennan here, and it's quite strange saying morning. We normally start these, we normally offer our webinars in the afternoon, so I'm so used to saying happy afternoon everybody. So for those who don't know that haven't joined a webinar of ours before, I'm Darlene McLennan and I manage the Australian Disability Clearinghouse on Education and Training, ADCET. And we're excited to be able to bring you this webinar called Accessibility and Automatic Speech Recognition with Echo360. Before I start, I want to pay my respects to the traditional and original custodians on the land on which we meet today, the Palawa people. And I would also like to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal community and who continue to maintain their identity, culture and their Aboriginal rights here in Tasmania. And I want to pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. We're really fortunate today to have Cassidy Fine present for us. Cassidy is the Senior Project Manager of Echo360 and she joins us from North Carolina, which hence why we're doing our webinar at 11 a.m. this morning, because for her it's 9 p.m. there and we really didn't want to make her stay awake until 11 p.m. We've also got Jo Williams, who's the General Manager for the Australian or the Asian Pacific area of Echo360 on the line. She won't be talking, but she's here and just want to recognise her joining us as well today. For those who have just recent joiners for us and you want to have a look at the captions, you can actually click on the CC button on the toolbar, which is either at the top or bottom of your screen. There's a little bit of information there on the screen at the moment on how to access the captions. But if you have any technical difficulties throughout the webinar, you can email us at admin@adcet.edu.au. The presentation should go for around 40 to 50 minutes. Cassidy said probably won't take that long. She's really keen to answer people's questions. So what we're going to ask is if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can add them to the chat box or the question pod. You have a choice there to choose all attendees, or I'm just trying to remember what it's called, all panellists and attendees, and that means other people can see your questions as well. It kind of makes the webinar a little bit more engaging because sometimes some of our audience are smarter than us and can even answer the questions for us, which is great. So yeah, if you want to share your question with everybody, please choose that. So I think that's about it. So thank you all for joining us, and now I'll hand over to you, Cassidy.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Darlene, and thank you all for the time this morning. I really appreciate it. I've always loved speaking directly with new audiences, so this is exciting for me. Kind of wild to do it via my laptop. But yeah, as Darlene mentioned, I am the Senior Product Manager at Echo. I help oversee everything related to teaching and learning, so really everything that a student or instructor would engage with on the platform. I've been with Echo for about 5 years now, so it's really exciting for me to see a lot of these features come to fruition and work with a lot of these different audiences. For those of you that aren't familiar with Echo360, we really are the only platform that is built solely for education and educators by educators. We've really crafted the platform to work and function and think the way that you already do today. We have this life cycle that we like to present just to kind of help explain how we think through, when we're building new workflows, when we're modifying existing workflows, and we're thinking about, ways of adding to the platform in general. We always think through these different things that are always happening and should be really more of a flywheel within the platform itself. Everything from creating new media. We have a dedicated capture application called Universal Capture. We also support robust scheduling of captures and dissociations with class containers for easy access. Through managing that media to enhancing it, we'll obviously be talking a lot about transcripts and captioning, which is a particular enhancement today. Sharing that media with individuals, groups, classes, and the public, ideally in as automated of a fashion as possible. to actually tracking engagement through analysis of the media itself. So being able to see who is accessing the media when, what points they're watching, where they're possibly dropping off, what questions they're getting right, what questions they may need more help with. And again, reusing all of that content and, making it as robust and useful as possible for your audiences. We have a lot of different tools we support within our classroom. You'll see our classroom a little bit later tonight as we play through our interactive transcript tool. But you can also see here a bunch of the other tools that we offer, including engaging different polling types, such as image-based polling. We also support live Q&A within our own classroom, very similar to Zoom's Q&A as well. Interactive note-taking, so you can see here a student is taking a note and it will automatically timestamp both the moment in the video as well as the slide on which the student is on. So if they don't remember why they made a note, if they're like me where I read an email I sent 6 months ago and I'm like, why did I send that? What was that about? You can go back and be brought immediately to the right moment in the video and the presentation. And of course, the ability to search across your content to find exactly what you're looking for. And then on the analysis end, really helping to understand, why students are doing what they're doing. Everything from heat maps within the classroom or individual media to seeing individual students' behavior around attendance, video views, Q&A activity, activity participation, and notes as well. And finally, we also now support comprehensive video management. This is something we released not too long ago, I think 6 to 9 months ago, and something my team spearheaded. So we're really excited about this. But this is really helping to organize, share, and access content in a simple and intuitive way. So being able to search and filter for exactly what you're looking for, sharing from a single click to a different user, to groups, to different classes, or even the public. And doing this all from within your LMS, so a platform you're comfortable with and a platform that you're probably in the majority of the day anyway. So that's a little bit about Echo. I'd love to now jump into a broader view of accessibility and, of course, why is it important? So when I talk to audiences, at our different user conferences or even internally, I always like to bring up this image and just remind people exactly what accessibility is. We just had our user conference actually in New York at Columbia University this past week. So it was really great to speak with a lot of the heads of the accessibility departments at the various schools that attended and get their feedback around kind of how they're helping to get the word out on their campus and work with different instructors and different groups on campus. So why is accessibility important? At least 1 in 5 people in Australia have a long-term illness, impairment, or disability, and even more, unfortunately, I couldn't find any numbers around this that were recent, but even more than that have a temporary disability as well. And this statistic is nearly identical for the US and for the UK as well. It's generally around 19 or 20%, at least around, this is pulled from the Australian Bureau of Statistics from 2016. The 2010 census in the U.S. is about the same, and they're expecting even more within the 2020 census. And I use this image comparing equality, accommodation, and accessibility just to remind everyone, sort of the differences. Equality being everyone is in the same room as the whiteboard, but not everyone can actually use it. Accommodation being, one person has been given a ramp, another person has been given a block or a stool. But without those two things, they wouldn't be able to use the whiteboard. And the third is, of course, making sure the whiteboard is placed in a way that everyone can use it successfully. That truly is, the difference in a kind of visual way between equality, accommodation, and accessibility. So when we're working through ensuring accessibility, of course, we're a global company, so each country has its own laws that we have to work with our legal teams to read through, to understand, then socialize with the various team members throughout Echo. Within the U.S., we have the ADA in Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. Within the UK, we have the European Accessibility Act, as well as updates to the Equality Act of 2010, which I'll be discussing in further detail later on in this presentation. In Australia, there's the Disability Discrimination Act of '92, and of course the more broader UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which a lot of these laws, at least I know in the US, helped draw from. But then of course, throughout all this, and we at Echo are going to strive to adhere to the tightest definition of these laws. Web accessibility is moving towards a more accepted global standard, which is always great. WCAG or WCAG 2.1 is the latest standard. This stands for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines and is created by the W3C. And there are 3 different levels of compliance. A, which is best effort, AA, which shows compliance, and AAA, which is gold star. This is creating a kind of new standard or new kind of level of compliance that other companies and other groups would be good to follow as well. So I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing today in relation to WCAG and our kind of various levels of compliance, as well as what we're looking for in the future with that and our partners along that journey. So as of today, we have a fully automated testing suite for our QA team. You can see in the visual I've included an example of an output of a test from our automated QA tests. We are utilizing currently the Axe accessibility engine created by DQ. It integrates open source JavaScript and other sort of Cucumber or Ruby-based frameworks that, if any of you are familiar with Cucumber or Ruby, that's what we're using today for the other automated tests within our suite. So it works really nicely with those. In addition to that, we're also supporting and utilizing what we call a UI or user interface component library. What this means is you can think of it almost as a toolbox. So if you're an artist and you have a box full of pencils, crayons, oil paints, paintbrush, eraser, we're building something similar for our developers as well. So when we're building new elements in our user interface or the front end of the application, if you will, our developers already have kind of a set of tools they can use to build new things. So when we're using, we're building a new page that uses a table display to display new information, or we're building a new drop-down menu. A user needs to select their desired language, or they want to bookmark something to save it. All of these things, what we do when we're building our component library or building a new component is ensure that it is always fully WCAG AA compliant. So that means contrast needs to be tested. If there's any sort of tab order that needs to be tested and ensured. If there's any sort of keyboard navigation specifics that needs to be tested and ensured. And that way we know when we're building something new, it will already be compliant. And it helps also speed up our build time as well, which I'm sure everyone likes. I like that as well. Great. We're also working towards a accessibility remediation in partnership with Level Access. For those of you that aren't familiar with Level Access, we took quite some time to really find a partner we wanted to work with that would really go through our platform with a fine-tooth comb. We are, an older platform in terms of how long we've been on the market, which is exciting, but that means that we need our partners to be very thorough. And we decided on Level Access for several reasons, but the number one reason I would say is just truly their dedication to accessibility and their history of working with many different companies across many different industries, all in software and a lot in hardware as well. It was founded in 1997 by Tim Springer and a few of his friends that were all engineers. He actually, worked with a bunch of engineers that were both in a wheelchair, and he built an app that would basically help them find places they would go where they wouldn't be frustrated that there wasn't, a ramp available to them or doors that were, that they could use. So he became really passionate about it, and that's why he founded Level Access. So they've supported our remediation and have audited over 1,000 companies to date. All their testing and remediation is performed by employees with disabilities specifically, and all their suggestions are formed by those as well. And the leaders include Tim, who I've already spoken about, and Jonathan Avila, who is the Chief Accessibility Officer. For those of you not familiar with him, he's worked very closely with WCAG and has helped actually form a lot of the standards as they are today. So we're very excited to be working with them, and obviously they're leading the space in a lot of this work. As for the areas of remediation that they'll be looking at, for those of you familiar with WCAG, these will be kind of a no-brainer, but I always like to go through them. At least they're helpful for me. The 4 areas being you need to ensure that your platform, your tools, or your content is perceivable, which means that the information and the user interface components or UI components must be presentable to users in ways that they can perceive. Now that they can perceive them, those elements must also be operable. So the UI components and navigation must be able to be operated by the user. The information must be understandable. So the information and the operation of the UI itself must be easily understandable. A good example of this would be, if you're doing a tab order that would be illogical or go backwards or just generally kind of not function as expected. That's a kind of way of breaking that third tenet of understandability. And the 4th being, it must be robust. So the content or the platform must be robust enough that it can be interpreted by a wide range of user agents, of course, including assistive technologies. So within this remediation, we have started our global audit with level access. This includes all of our different applications, including Universal Capture, which is a desktop application, our student, instructor, and admin roles and workflows accordingly within the platform, as well as our mobile application. And once that's complete, we'll begin our full remediation, and we'll start in areas that affect the most users. So what's helpful in working with level access is they're able to guide us towards areas where they feel that the issues at hand are the most dramatic or catastrophic. And then they sort of give us a back of the napkin estimation of what level of effort would be to resolve that, which is great because then we can really see where we'll make the most kind of progress in addressing a lot of issues very quickly and start to knock those off. So we're really excited to see the results of their audit and start to do that work. Also, before I move on, you can see this is one of our drop-down menus, and this is part of the work that we've done for the UI component library. So you can see all of these are kind of in a friendly tab order, and all of the icons have related text to them as well, which is great. So as I spoke about earlier, the standards around accessibility are evolving, especially in a legal sense. So for those of you that work with schools in the UK or are in the UK, you're probably familiar with the public sector bodies, websites and mobile applications accessibility regulations that came out late last year, I believe. This ensures a deadline of full WCAG 2.1 AA compliance by September 23rd, 2020, I believe, so long as your website existed before September 23rd, 2018. I may be wrong with those dates, but that's the best of my knowledge. If your website did not exist before that date, then you actually must be compliant by September 23rd, 2019 of this year. But so what all that means is, we'll obviously be working hand in hand with our customers, with our partners, and within ourselves as a company to ensure that compliance fully. So what's at stake? A lot of this is U.S. focused, but a lot of the lawsuits we've seen, examples we've seen are U.S. as focused. So I wanted to kind of bring up some of these. In every single legal action that's been taken so far, the litigant has prevailed, which is probably not surprising when you're looking at a lot of these cases. But over 240 federal ADA website compliance lawsuits were filed in 2016 alone. We unfortunately don't have newer data, but we should have some from 2017, I believe, shortly. The awards can vary based on the size of the case, but the legal fees can go from $25K upward. And in the early 2000s, the CSU system pulled all content out of the iTunes library program, just as an example. This was actually great in a way that obviously while it was painful for those users that had to file the lawsuit in the first place, This forced Apple to respond by fixing accessibility issues for Mac and Windows, and really started an accessibility first initiative within Apple itself that has really led the industry. This is just to say, a lot of, potentially customers or users are, rightly so, a little bit stressed out about this. But much like GDPR, I think this is a welcome regulation. I think this will finally kind of push accessibility to the forefront and make sure everyone is educated and aware of the requirements and the necessity. Great. So what tools can you use to help make your content accessible? I start with the strengths of lecture capture, and this is a great view from one of our partner universities. There are a couple of quotes, and I'll read through them here in a moment, but this is just to say that, when you're talking about accessibility, you're not necessarily just talking about closed captioning, you're not necessarily just talking about, keyboard navigation, or just talking about, different assistive tools. Really, it's aiding access to content and access to learning in any way you can. And lecture capture in and of itself is a great way to provide that access. So one student had said, when they polled the class, how has lecture capture helped you? Is this a tool that you would like to continue using? One student said, I have dyslexia and chronic fatigue, and if it wasn't for lecture capture, I would have to drop out of university. And a second student said, I suffer from autoimmune inflammatory arthritis and had a serious flare and missed some lectures. In the past, I've suffered from anxiety over missed lectures or forced myself to walk to my lectures, making my condition worse. Having lecture capture meant that I could stay at home and recover properly without missing out on information, and it's been a major relief. And the last student on the slide said, as a student with learning difficulties, I found the lecture capture videos more useful than simply using a dictaphone because they had the visual aspect as well. And it's good revision material, especially for, this is unfortunately where the instructor's head is masking the word, but especially for different learners. So again, this is just to kind of say, lecture capture in and of itself is an incredibly useful tool, but of course there's even more that we can do, with lecture capture as well. And that brings us to a discussion of transcription and closed captioning and the differences and what that means. So transcription in and of itself is also a significant improvement in the accessibility of video. Not all accessibility is about sensory impairment, which is important to think about. It provides learners other modes of viewing content, which can be helpful for multimodal learners. And we're aware, and you just want to make sure everyone is aware that we talk to the differences between transcription and closed captioning and the requirements of both and how they are different. So I have here transcripts do not equal closed captioning. Whereas closed captioning, of course, is still the primary focus of video accessibility. And within at least the United States and most other countries, the requirement is that it needs to be 99% accurate and include key descriptions such as speakers, inaudible noises or other noises. So for example, if I were to ding my cup, that ding should be included in the caption as well. And compliant in-house captioning initiative needs to have accountability. So if you are working within your university and you don't have the funding or aren't working with, a third-party vendor that is, generating these, with a human, there needs to be accountability of who is checking to make sure the captioning, is at a appropriate level of accuracy. Unfortunately, we're not there yet with the robot revolution of being able to fully automate, generating closed captioning that is 100% accurate, but we are shockingly getting pretty close, which is exciting. That just being said, that there needs to be someone or a group of persons, ideally, that are accountable for that. So we work with a bunch of closed captioning partners. We work with Replay Media, Caption Sync by Automatic Sync Technologies, or AST, AI Media, and Cielo24. We are also looking at partnering with other caption partners such as Rev and Verbit. But I always love hearing about new companies or new, solutions. So if any of you out there have heard of any that I didn't, mention or that you don't see, absolutely please put them in the Q&A. Yes, so again, going back to the idea of a transcript versus caption. I'm going to show a demo in a brief moment of our live transcript player within the classroom. But again, this is just to say, in thinking through our implementation, we explicitly kept closed captioning and transcripts within different views and access through different tools. And again, this is just to hammer home the fact that a transcript may not be 99% accurate, and it should not be considered to be the same as closed captioning track, which is why we keep them entirely separate and we don't automate any sort of pushing between the transcript and the caption track. Again, we need to have that person that is responsible to ensure that the captions are, appropriate and accurate. And the transcript, of course, can be used, for different purposes, whether it's, reviewing, notes before class, going through and ensuring you understand the material, or even, ideally understanding the material faster or more easily if you're a multimodal learner. A little bit about our partnership with Amazon Transcribe before I go into the demo. So when we were looking at the different possible partners that we could work with, we were testing with several other partner platforms, including Google, Watson through IBM, and 3Play Media. And in our testing, in addition to just the ease of use through Amazon Stack, since we are working on AWS, we just found consistently more that Amazon was, more accurate over time. We also really felt supported through our partnership with Amazon. And I actually meet with our Amazon partners once a month to help them steer, new features and the prioritization of the roadmap. We're one of their leading partners in the education space. They obviously work with a bunch of other companies that are also doing, transcripts, but in sort of different areas. So it's exciting to show them specific examples of, transcripts in educational workspaces and, through different workflows and through different examples. It's also fun as a product manager to be able to steer someone else's roadmap. So I understand it now. So yeah, we also support appropriate language packs for our 4 regions. So we have 4 different regions where we host in Amazon. That's Australia, the US, UK, and Canada. And they're also growing support and testing for multiple languages. So we're working with Amazon to help them roll out a way to automatically detect what language is being spoken and then transcribe in that language accordingly. Now around levels of accuracy of the transcripts themselves, we don't really agree or advertise a specific level just because there's so many different variables that can go into the generation of a transcript. So your audio, the quality of the audio itself, where the mic is or multiple mics within the room, whether they're kind of attached to the person and you get that sort of fuzz when their hair or their hand goes over the mic, or whether you have, the most fabulous, robust kind of classroom setup with multiple mics from the ceiling and kind of step pads that help switch the mic as the user, as the person moves through the classroom. That can all obviously, affect the quality of the transcript. Of course, the accents or whether a person speaks too fast, like I do in the morning when I've had too much coffee, or, if they don't enunciate as much as they could later on in the day, like, when you're tired, or hopefully I'm enunciating clearly now. But really all of that, again, can affect the outcome of the transcript as well. And then, of course, specialized language. Amazon is trying to constantly improve, and we're looking at, other tool sets we can use, such as custom dictionaries, to improve individual transcript outputs, especially in specialized areas such as medicine. But it can sometimes confuse different terms for more standard terms, if you will. So one of our professors that helps lead a lot of our research, Professor Perry Sampson, he teaches weather-related science. And so one of my favorite little typos is whenever he was saying gradient forces, and the transcribe was convinced that it was Grady and forces. So I always just imagine a person named Grady just kind of hanging out with him. I don't know. Anyway, I'll show you a live demo in the classroom, and it's a raw transcript so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, I'm going to change my share and add computer sound, so you should be able to see everything. Let's see. Excellent. So we're within the Echo360 Classroom right now. I'll walk through the different sort of tools and what's going to happen with the transcript player. And then I'll play back just for a little bit so you can hear and see the live playback as it happens. So within the classroom, we have multiple players. So you can see, in this case, the professor has recorded their presentation as well as them talking. We also have our transcript window. This is available through the transcript tool, which as you'll see is completely separate explicitly from the closed captioning tool. And again, we keep those separate, and we do that very much on purpose. From here, you can also see the user's ability to download the transcript. From here, they can download the transcript, and it actually shows the timestamps, as well as what I find is really interesting is the confidence level of each word as it was generated by the transcript algorithm. So what this means is that as the transcribe is going through and generating the transcript, it can be more or less confident of each word. And it's given to us as a float, which we convert to an integer of any number between 1 and 100. Generally, we see that accuracy to be very high for the majority of words, but every now and then you'll see, a word or a specialized word that may be very low. And we'll be working to expose that in our in-app editor that I'll show you a little bit more about shortly on. So let me go ahead, I'll make sure the sound is on, and I'll play this back so you can all see this playback live.
Cover it later. An example of an inclusion in a cell would be carbon that collects in your lungs from pollution in the air or from smoking cigarettes or other things that can be smoked. Cytosol is simply another word for cytoplasm. It is everything that you see here in pink, and you'll notice that we're using the color combinations that is typical for histology, the basophilic blue and the eosinophilic or acidophilic pink. So the cell membrane itself surrounds every cell, obviously.
Great. So you can see, as I'm watching along with the presentation, it's going through live and following along, so I can just sort of see where we are at every moment. What I can also do is it will respect variable speed playback. So if, like every other busy med school student, I need to get on with my day, I can put it on 2x and it will go through 2 times as fast, so I can get through all my different lectures and get on with my day. What I can also do is navigate to any moment within the transcript, and much like our notes feature, it will bring me right to that moment in the video. So let's see, I want to learn about the integral proteins and the transmembrane. What I can do is play back right from that moment, and it will continue on as it did before. So let me go back to the presentation. So what we're excited to do is to add on to this. What we support today in the transcribe kind of process is editing these files offline. You can see this is just an example of I'm editing this file in a text editor that's called Atom. That's developed through GitLab, the company that also makes GitHub. You can use Microsoft Word, Notepad++, text editor, really anything that you're most comfortable with, and the format will be the same. The output is a WebVTT file, which if you're familiar with YouTube closed captioning, it is a similar format. So in here you can see each of the different cues, the timestamp of the cue, and you can go through and edit that as you would like. And we'll be building off of that shortly and supporting a in-app editor within Echo360 as well. So we're very excited to get this going. I'm actually meeting with our development team this week to kick it off, so I'm incredibly excited. But as you can see, we have video playback from within Echo still, but with the active transcript much larger and the user being able to kind of edit on the fly. So we're looking at for the initial launch is of course allowing these users to edit it within our application without having to download those transcripts. Low confidence words, like I was speaking about earlier, will automatically be flagged. So you won't really have to worry about sort of figuring out word by word what is, confident, what isn't. You'll actually have a slider where we'll set by default kind of what we see based on the average confidence scores of each word within each transcript. And from there, as a user, you'll be able to sort of drag that confidence slider up or down depending on the needs of your users and your audience in order to edit that transcript. From this, users will be able to push transcripts to the caption track. This will not be automated, again, on purpose to make sure that things are compliant and that things are approved before they're pushed. And access to the editor is controlled through very certain roles. So we're creating a teaching assistant role within Echo360 that will give users the ability to then access the editor, as well as instructors and administrators as well. And we'll be looking at broadening and making that capability more specific as well as we roll out the functionality. For future functionality that we're looking to add, we'll be looking at displaying a total confidence score per transcript itself, not just word by word. We'll have some auto magic maths happening that we can then bubble up and show users. We're hoping this will be a really easy way for people to be able to sort potentially by lowest confidence or highest confidence, so they can then assign those for different users for editing based on their need, again, and based on that urgency. And we're also looking to bubble up commonly used keywords. This would be a great way for users to kind of search and see, okay, I know on the next exam we're covering mitochondria. Let me just do a quick search and we can surface all the transcripts where we know the common keywords include mitochondria. And then of course commenting, so the ability for users to really engage with the transcript in a deeper way and ensure both their edits are correct, but also that they can then go in and share thoughts, share ideas on certain areas of the lecture itself. Great. So we're really excited to start working on that functionality. We'd love to hear any thoughts, ideas, questions, concerns you have. But more generally, I would just love to hear kind of how else can we help, and what else should we be thinking about or looking at. We're looking at creating a lot more cohorts and webinars just to get more feedback and ideas from the public. Any other tools you'd recommend would be amazing as well. But also generally, we'd also just love to hear, kind of what standards or workflows your university has already implemented and what you think will need to be implemented or changed potentially in the future. What sort of gaps do you foresee that you aren't sure yet how to solve, or how you're not sure your university will be able to solve? And what standards or best practices that you're currently driving you think others could learn from? Really, this is where I'd love to dive into the QA and sort of, see what people are doing. So I'll leave this up kind of just as a talking point. Let me share again.
Yep, that'd be great if you could, Kathy. They were great questions.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
If anybody have got questions for Cassidy, please write it into the chat pod or the question and answer pod. We've just got one question at the moment, Cassidy. So does Echo ASR learn as it goes, as the same as the Amazon builds its recognition if transcripts is corrected, edited by users?
So as of now, if it is edited, the system isn't learning from it, unfortunately. But as we're building out the editor, our plan is to have that communication be more two-way and have that learning be more automated.
Yep, brilliant. Is the transcript example now available for Australian universities using Echo360?
It is, yes. So the live demo I just did is currently available in production for all of our customers.
Brilliant. And are you aware of how much Echo ASR or Amazon is used in Australia at present, as this technology of ASR needs to build recognition of Australian voices?
Yes, so I would say I don't have specific numbers or percentages of our user base. I do know that it is being picked up a little bit more widely in the Australia region than our US partners. Our US partners tend to be a little bit more, risk averse or unwilling to sort of try out, new exciting things. Yes, but we do have a good amount of our customers picking it up.
That's great. That's all the questions at the moment. Is anybody online currently using? I know a couple of universities have been trialling it. Here at the University of Tasmania, we've had a few. Does anybody want to make any comments in the question box I could share with anybody? Nothing's coming through at the moment. Is there anything else that you're wanting to say, Cassidy, if we're waiting on other questions?
No, I think just, this is really exciting to me. So thank you for, having me and letting me, speak about all this. We're, really excited to be working on additional functionality around this, specifically the transcript editor. But, even outside of, this presentation, if anyone has any thoughts or ideas, hopefully they can reach out to you or Joe or myself. I'll share my email at the end of this so people can reach out to me directly. I love to always hear new ideas, workflows, anything like that. So yeah, no, that's, I think
right.
that's it.
So we just had a question around cost, so that might be more a question that Joe may be able to offer later, but
Yes,
I know a couple of the universities are utilising the free hours and they're just kind of worried about that long-term cost. So
yeah, of course. No, that's definitely something Joe can help answer, and she can also, walk you through, what your potential workflows are and kind of what your expected sort of cost would be based on usage.
yeah, excellent. And just asking what the ETA for the app editor would be?
Yeah, so it's about to be in development. We can't, we don't usually guarantee a specific date just because of our development process. So we practice Agile. We, develop and release software in 2-week sprints. This helps us, be lean and, release bug fixes faster, but also get substantial and useful software out into production, into our customers' hands faster as well. So I can say that it is about to be currently actively coded against, and we're expecting to have it be released within the kind of late fall in the States. So late spring timeframe in the APAC region, but that's our best estimate right now.
Brilliant. So we had a comment that people are loving the fact that the transcript can be seen as a separate function to the caption. So that's a really useful and well done for doing that.
I appreciate that.
How automated is the captioning process?
Yeah, so we hook into all of our captioning partners' APIs. So all you have to do is basically, hook into, our system with your secret and, ID for their account. And then everything just gets pushed to them automatically and it displays in the classroom automatically. We can help you kind of reach out and, set up a relationship and partnership with any of the closed captioning providers you'd like. But once that's all done, you basically just set up your account in Echo and all of it gets displayed and processed automatically.
Excellent. And someone said, thanks for the new version of HLS for Live. Having the platform more accessible off campus is great. So.
Awesome. Great. I'll pass it along to Tony Araya. He's the Capture PM. He'll love to hear that.
Excellent. We've put Joe's contact details in if people want to email her as the Australian rep into the chat box, so people can grab her email from there.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Another question, does that mean that there is a real person doing the captions? No. So.
Yes, so we don't do the closed captioning ourselves. We rely on our closed captioning partners. They're experts and this is entirely their business. There are different levels of closed captioning you can buy from any of those third-party partners, and one of them is always human-generated captioning.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you. The questions have stopped coming in, so that's fantastic. So thank you so much for staying awake or for getting away from your TV viewing or whatever.
No worries at all. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you made us a little bit jealous. So we don't have a strong litigation, which, you know, it's probably good that we don't have a strong litigation here in Australia, but to see how many cases have gone up in America that's actually brought about significant change in this area is great. We don't have that same experience, but we're benefiting from it. Hence, you know, Netflix is all transcribed, you know, or captioned now because of what's happened in the US. So, but we haven't had as much of that happening in the university and training sector. So there was just one other question. You mentioned having an in-house captioning team. What is their main purpose? That was more someone else's in-house, wasn't it? Was it?
It must be. Yeah, we don't do in-house closed captioning. We only work with our third-party partners. That's entirely their expertise. Yeah. Yeah.
No, excellent. All right, well, we'll finish there. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I think the offer's certainly there to email any of us with any of your other questions, and we'll pass it on to Cassidy or Joe. It's been great to hear about how it works, and for the university that I work with, they've been, you know, really enjoying the trials, so it's fantastic. For the next webinar that ADCET's hosting, we hope to have one with NDIS, but we're having trouble getting a date. So hopefully in August we will have something around National Disability Insurance Scheme and the interface between the further education sector. So if you are not on our mailing list, please go to our website and register to receive our newsletter, where you'll get to hear all about our up and coming webinars. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Cassidy, and thank you, Joe, for doing a great job in the back end answering questions as well. So brilliant. All right.
Thank you,
everybody, and have a great day.